Welcome, I'm Kinetic Symphony. This is Dave. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the supernatural. Case file number 1738, written by Lunekko. The Color Switch, a room's curious glitch. My boyfriend's family have this house in the countryside where me and my boyfriend like to go spend the weekends like once every 2 or 3 months. Ever since the first time I went to this house, my boyfriend's room had its walls painted light green. Although the shades of green is pretty light, it's dark enough so you can distinguish it from other colors, especially white. Last month, I went to this house again, and the walls on this room were now fully white. I instantly realized it was looking different, and said to my boyfriend that the room looked way better that way, with white walls. My boyfriend looked at me like I was crazy and said, "What are you talking about? They've always been this color." I'm already used to him not paying attention to anything. He has severe ADHD, so it's not weird that he never noticed before. So I said that his room was green before. He denied again, and then I showed him on my phone a picture of him inside the room with green walls. We laughed about his lack of attention to the world around him, and that was it. We spent the whole weekend there, and during that time we slept in his room, now with white walls. Now last weekend, his parents held an event there, and I got there earlier to help with the preparations. As soon as I entered his room, the walls were painted light green again. I asked him if his father asked someone to paint the walls again, and one more time, he said his walls have always been that color. I said that the last time I was there the walls were painted white, but maybe his dad painted them white and painted them green again. He assured me that those walls were not painted again in a long time, because you could still see stains that have always been there. It's true. I could see the old stains and marks too. I then mentioned that we already had this exact same conversation last time I was there, but with the white walls, and he remembered it right away. I said that maybe his dad changed the light bulbs, but he was 100% sure that no one did such a thing. Although my boyfriend's memory is not that reliable, I do believe no one painted the walls again or changed the light bulbs. Even if someone did, last month I could still see the room white, with only the sunlight that came from the window, and there were indeed very old stains in the walls. Things like marks where the beds used to touch the walls, and little dots from killed insects. My boyfriend didn't care that much about this occurrence. He said it was weird and moved on. I've read many stories here about objects going missing, but never came across something like this. Has anyone here ever experienced a similar event? Case answer file 1738. The Color Switch, a room's curious glitch. So first off, I just want to say, green walls? It's not my style at all. Kinda sounds gross, to be honest. I don't think I've ever seen green painted walls. Well, not in a home. I think in a few business places I have, but yeah, pass on that. This glitch though, nothing fits easily. It can't be quantum immortality because the picture evidence disproves that. You had pictures on your phone when you were looking at the walls being white, of them being green. If you were in a different universe, the phone would have shown that they were always white. So, it's not quantum immortality. And if it was an alternate universe glimpse, but you weren't really there, maybe. But those don't usually last long. So if you were there over days and they were still white the entire time, it just seems like an actual technical universe glitch, where the actual server you're on, the simulation simply glitched out, maybe failed to load the texture of the wall. Case file number 1739, written by Ambidextra. Bolt from the Blue, a workshop tale told true. I had taken apart an old piece of furniture that I was salvaging, and it was put together with old screws and bolts. After I cleaned it all up, I reassembled it and had the last bolt in my hand. It was a little rusty, so I decided to grab some WD-40 to clean it up. I walked to my kitchen, put the bolt down on the counter, and went to grab the WD-40. Turned back around, and the bolt was gone. This was a long lag bolt. Had it rolled off the counter, it would have made noise. I spent the next 5 minutes looking everywhere, including under furniture, places it wouldn't be, etc. I was flummoxed. I finally decided to head down to the basement, which is where my workshop is, and see if I had a similar bolt to use. Right as I reached the back door in the kitchen to head outside, the access door is outside, I heard a weird metallic ping, and turned to see the bolt falling from ceiling height, hitting the counter and rolling to a stop. I was the only one home. It was like it went to another dimension, or I did. Case also file 1739. Bolt from Blue. A workshop tale told true. When objects are de-rendered, and don't render correctly in their correct spot, but later come back in such an overt flare, extravagant style, like, hey, I'm all the way up here where there's no possible way I could be, and now I'm falling. My gut tells me some mind was responsible for that. They wanted you to be very clear that, yeah, this came back. That the mistake was fixed. Almost like an apology, without words. Sorry I messed up, but I fixed it. Case file number 1740, written by Pikachu Pal 24. Invisible thirst from a Gatorade burst. This has been bothering me since it happened last week, and I can't come up with an explanation for it. The night before this happened, I had noticed that I didn't have anything to drink. I asked my husband if he would get me a Gatorade in the morning, because he usually goes to the store before he leaves for work. When I woke up the next day, he had already left. I went to go look, but figured he had forgotten, since it was pretty late when I told him, and he forgets things a lot. I looked through the whole fridge, including the drawers. Sure enough, I couldn't find any new drinks in there. I poured myself a bit of leftover Sprite, because it was the only thing in there. But I really don't like drinking soda much, especially in the morning. I came back and got something else out of the fridge about an hour later as well, and there were still no drinks in there. At this point, I assumed I was going to have to walk to the store to get a drink. He had our only vehicle, but figured I would ask him just in case he did get some and just forgot to put them in the fridge. He told me he got 2 Gatorades and that they were both in the fridge. I went to look yet another time, and there they were, front and center. In fact, they were right next to the bottle of Sprite. I don't know how I could have possibly missed them while grabbing the bottle right next to them. Even if I was half asleep, and that unaware of what I was looking at. I had come back to the fridge a second time already, and was definitely awake at that point. It's like the drinks didn't exist until he mentioned them, and suddenly, there they were. Case also file 1740. Invisible thirst from a Gatorade burst. A classic server failure. You go to check the fridge. The Gatorade units are supposed to be there. Your husband did put them there. The call was made to the server cluster, but then the error came back, insufficient CPU clusters to fulfill requests in that exact moment. So instead of slowly letting the server catch up, where the objects would render in slowly over a second or something, where you would clearly see it, they block it entirely. If it can't happen fast enough for us to not realize it's happening at all, it ever happens, then it just blocks it out. Because think about it. If an object goes missing that's supposed to be there, we will just naturally brush that aside. We say, oh, misplaced it, we just somehow missed it. It's all our fault. It's not because we live in a simulation. The average person would never think that. But if the average person saw their Gatorade materialize in front of their eyes, like fading in, yeah, even an average person, a normal person, would start to question their own reality. Maybe they would start to question their mind more than reality itself, but still. If I was to design a failsafe to guard against people realizing this is a simulation, that's what I would do. If the CPU can't operate fast enough to fulfill the loading request before the person would see it, then it just blocks it entirely, until they are later not there, and then it fulfills the request. It seems like the most likely explanation to me. Now time for the quote of the day. Oh yes, the past can hurt, but you can either run from it or learn from it. From the Lion King. The study of the past, the learning of the past, the bettering of your future, the building of your future, really. If you don't know the past, then you're a slave to the future. Now, sometimes people do have such traumatic memories, such pain in their past, that they completely block it out. There are mental blocks placed in by our own subconscious, where things happen to us and our minds simply do not allow us to experience them again. But even then, you still have that scar linger inside you. There's an interesting point about people who undergo major surgery. Yes, their minds are knocked out during the process. They don't remember anything when they wake up. But there's evidence to indicate that the body still remembers. There's lingering effects from that surgery, even though you don't physically remember. So the body will remember. So if you choose to embrace it mentally or not, doesn't really matter. It's still going to be there. So you might as well embrace it, realize that it happened, and try to learn from it. Make sure it doesn't happen again. That's the best bet anyone could have, I think. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.